Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dice Odyssey. I'm Kaz, and today we're going to be talking about it's more of a fun, kind of tongue-in-cheek style list, if that's the right term to say. It's more of a fun list for me, I guess you could say. Kind of more of a personal list. My top 10 favorite table hog games, okay? And you could throw the term epic in there, or, you know, just the amount of space the actual game takes up. This is not a comprehensive list necessarily, and it's not necessarily scientifically accurate, right? It's just more of a fun list I was thinking of one day, and I was like, hey, I'd like to throw that list together and put it out there and see what people think. So, you know, just saying that the numbering of this to some extent is enjoyment, but it doesn't necessarily mean I enjoy it the most. It's kind of a mixture of enjoyment plus how much space it tends to take up. And this could include expansions. This could include, you know, this could be just base game itself. I wanted to go ahead and start the list off. And again, this is not comprehensive by any means. I'm probably going to leave some games off, probably because either I A, don't like them, B, haven't played them, or C, don't care. I mean, it could be a number of things, right? Take your pick. But also at the end of the list, I'd like to know what your top 10 table hog games, or games that you realize just take up so much table space, but it's games that you really enjoy. And again, it doesn't have to, you know, equal anything that I'm saying necessarily in terms of space and area, but I would love to hear from you as well. A couple of honorable mentions. Star Trek Ascendancy. I mean, if you've ever seen it, you basically are setting out space lanes on the board. It's got, I say board, you're building your board, so to speak. And, you know, it's got all the different planets connected by space lanes, and it can really fill, especially a table like this up, it can fill a table up fast. Another one is Fallen Lands, a post-apocalyptic board game. This game has, I've lost count of the cards. I think it has like over 600 cards in it. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it is a lot of cards in that game. A lot of tokens, a lot of this, a lot of that. And it's a really fun game of you trying to survive in the wasteland, post-apocalyptic, you know, I mean, just think of any post-apocalyptic movie like Mad Max, and that's kind of what you're looking at there. But that game is a table hog, and it is a very fun game. Another one is Batman Gotham City Chronicles. I don't get that to the table as much as I would like. It is a massive table hog. I do like the game, hate the rule book. Go watch our review. You'll see how badly I bash that game for the rule book. The mechanics themselves in general are fun. I do enjoy, it gives me a bit of a feeling of playing Batman. To some extent, they got that river system in there. They got a lot of the theme in there. And you're taking down baddies and foiling, you know, problems that are going on in the city. So that's another one that it is a massive table hog. Just look at the board itself. It takes up a lot of space. Another one is Sorcerer City. This is a real-time game. Hey, I'm not a huge fan of most real-time games. There's only a few right now that I like. Sorcerer City is one of them by Druid City Games. And I really enjoy that. It's got kind of a mix between Dominion and Carcassonne. That's kind of what it feels like to me. You're drafting tiles and putting them in, you know, your city as you take a couple of minutes to put your city together, and you're getting combos and special abilities, and you're fighting monsters. Sorcerer City is a great game. And those coins, those lovely metal coins. Metal coin lust. Anyway, that's another one. After all my cheating's out of the way, let's go ahead and get to my number 10. My number 10 is a Star Wars game. And I could have fit just about any kind of Star Wars game on here. I could have fit Star Wars Armada, which I do love. I could have fit X-Wing, depending on how much you're putting out there, right, in terms of like the miniatures and things like that and the battle surface. I could have put Imperial Assault, but what I went with is pretty much, in my opinion, the definitive Star Wars game, Star Wars Rebellion. The first thing is you're putting together two big, giant pieces of the board that could be full boards for another game themselves together to form the galaxy. I can't remember how many planets. It's like 32 planets or something like that. And you're always going to go and blow up Kashyyyk because Wookiees, right? I love Wookiees, but, you know, Kashyyyk likes to get blown up a lot. But one side's playing the Empire, the other side is playing the Rebellion, and the Rebellion has to try to get as much influence as they can, and they're trying to get that timer to get down to zero, so to speak, before the Empire finds their hidden base. It's cat and mouse game. It is hidden movement to some extent in terms of like, well, it's more like, you know, it's hidden movement, but it's more like trying to find the base hidden movement. You know what I mean? And you're battling it out with them at times, but the Empire's blowing up planets with the Death Stars, and you can have 2 of those jokers in the game if I remember correctly. But that is a fun game. It's a little bit of a longer game. It is a 2-player game, but it is an awesome Star Wars experience. My number 9 is a Western themed game. It is a sandbox style game. Currently it is my favorite Western game, Western Legends. This game is basically a Western, you know, think of any kind of Western movie, it's that in a box, okay? Take Tombstone, that's that in a box. Because you can be Doc Holliday, you can be Wyatt Earp. Heck, you can even be some of the bad guys in the movie, you know what I mean? You can be any kind of cultural icon from Western Legends history, so to speak. And yes, Tombstone quotes and Silverado quotes and you know, the Spaghetti Western series quotes are mandatory during this game.
Don't any of you have the guts to play for blood?
I'm your huckleberry. That's just my game.
And you can go out and do anything you want. You can go out and rob banks. You can go out and mine for gold. You can go out and rustle or wrangle cattle. You can go, you know, play poker. And especially if you get the expansion added on, which is Ante Up, and I know they've got another one coming out right now, which adds even more so to the board where it barely fits on this table. My goodness, I want to play on a bigger table because of that. There's an extra town added on. I think it's called Blood Gulch, or maybe I'm thinking of Halo. But anyway, they've got all. It just becomes a massive table hog with everything that's in it. The base game itself is fairly decently sized table hog, but especially that expansion of Ante Up. My gosh, it goes through the roof on how much of a table hog this game is. But anyway, love it, love it, love it to pieces. It's one of my all-time favorite games right now, Western Legends. If you haven't had a chance to check this game out and you like sandbox style games and you like Westerns, that's the game you need to check out. My number 8, Scythe. Now, you may not necessarily think that just in base game alone, but if you add in the Rise of Fenris and any other expansion like airships and what have you, especially because Rise of Fenris is modular, you kind of add what you want. This game, I mean, I had to get the legendary box to fit everything I wanted in this game, and it still feels filled to the brim, you know? This game is an amazing experience. It's like a massive puzzle to be solved every time you play, right? And you know, if you lived under a rock, I'll just go ahead and tell you, Scythe is basically a game that takes place in an alternate history, 1920s, I believe it is. And you know, instead of like tanks and things that are in there, it's mechs, right? And so basically you're trying to gain control over different territories in your land and in the land in general. And you're trying to gain resources from that. It feels like a Cold War. It really does, because occasionally you might have a battle, but it's really more of a resource management, engine building game, right? My number 7 is what I would consider almost like a dice placement game. It's like a worker placement, but with dice placement game. It's that Viking game, Champions of Midgard. This game, I will say one of the main reasons I say it's a table hog is it's not horrible as a base game. I mean, in terms of the table hogginess, if that's a term. I just made it up, so we'll add it to the lexicon. But it's more because I didn't care for the game all that much at base game level. I felt like it was just had too much randomness in it. And I'm not saying it was, you know, not mitigatable. There were ways to mitigate it, but I don't know. You could go out to sea and fight the monsters and you get hosed sometimes, right? And you really plan, and that could really set you back. I still thought it was okay and decently designed. There were some things about it I didn't like. But when you added in the expansions to it, I think there was the Dark Mountains expansion and the Valhalla expansion, especially Valhalla, this game becomes a massive table hog again. And it also opens this game up to where I wasn't a huge fan of it to now it's one of my favorite games. Champions Midgard, you're basically sending out your workers as dice and you're getting, you're trying to gain resources. You're trying to set up your crew to go fight monsters and things like that on the high seas and wherever else, draugrs and, I think trolls that come to your village and what have you. With the Valhalla expansion and with the Valhalla expansion, with the Dark Mountain expansion too, you're adding more places to fight, enemies and stuff. They add more characters into the game, but they also added the fact that if you die, you're able to send those, dead bodies, so to speak, those dead warriors into Valhalla, and you're able to use, this sounds so morbid, you're able to use their dead bodies, so to speak, to gain more power, to use it to purchase new powers for your clan, and so on and so forth. Fun game. Table hog to the max, especially with expansions. Champions of Midgard is a game that's set in space. It is a sandbox game. It does take a little while, and I will not play it past 3 players because I won't play it past 3 players. It just takes too long. But it is an amazingly fun game. Xayah, Legends of a Drift System. This game, it basically gives me everything I'm looking for when it comes to that, me taking over my own ship and I'm going out into the verse to make the money. Firefly reference, I get it. Or I'm Han Solo and I'm on the Millennium Falcon, and yes, I know there's Outer Rim and it's a decent game, but it's not a huge table hog like this one, okay? Xayah is a massive table hog. My gosh, from the metal coins to all the tokens to the cards, and there are a ton of cards, to the massive amount of polyomino shapes that you're using to fit on your ship to be able to upgrade your ship for better shields, better engines, weapons, all sorts of stuff, right? Cargo holds and things like that. I love the feeling of going out into the verse and just doing whatever the flip I want. I can be a bounty hunter. I can be an outlaw. I could be a sheriff. I feel like I'm talking about Western Legends. And I should have mentioned that in Western Legends, but you basically get the same gist. I could go out there and, be an outlaw and shoot down whoever and take their stuff. Or, just shoot them down anyway. And somebody else could come after me because I'm being an outlaw. Or I could go after the outlaws myself. I could do different kinds of trading missions. I can go after, I can do pickup and delivery. Just so much fun stuff. And you're building the galaxy out as you want to. This game's amazing. And it has so much of what I love in sci-fi shows and spacefaring shows. I've always wanted to be the captain of my own starship. And if you've ever played a game and slight sidebar, if you ever played a game called FTL, Faster Than Light, on your iPad or on Steam or anything like that, it has very much like a rogue-like feeling to it, which this kind of evokes for me. And in that you're managing weapons and systems and things like that. It doesn't get quite into the detail like that does. Armada does that more for me, but I still get that feeling of exploring the galaxy and moving around and just managing my ship, and so that's what I like. Just something like that just touches my heart in all the right ways. My number 5, this is a game that is what I would call like time travel, but really it's debt. So it's real life. Anachrony, it's a worker placement game where you are basically taking control of one of several different factions who are trying to, I guess, rebuild the world in your image, so to speak, because they got a cataclysm coming in, but they're also using time travel to borrow stuff from themselves in the past or in the future. I always forget that part. But they're trying to borrow stuff from themselves, like, resources, mechs, things like that, from themselves in the past to be able to help themselves in the future. But you got to pay it back because you can cause time anomalies. You can cause problems for your clan, your faction. And it is extraordinarily crunchy. It's extraordinarily well thought out, extraordinarily deep. It is going to be a very complex game, but it's one of the ones that I really feel like touches the threshold of where I want to go sometimes with games. But I really love this game. My number 4 is a game that, I'll go ahead and say it. I was not the biggest fan of Agricola. I thought it was fun. It was okay. It wasn't anything to write home about, but boy, feeding your people was tough. Okay, it just was. Yes, there's some cool card play and things like that you can do that the other game I'm going to mention kind of loses to some extent, but it doesn't bother me because I like the tiles. Caverna. I love Caverna. Caverna is amazing. It is just basically you're a cave farmer. You're a dwarf, right? You're a dwarven cave farmer, as I like to call it. And you can do your normal vegetable growing outside of your cave. You have to prepare the land for it. You can do the vegetable growing. You can have farm animals, but you can also mine for your stuff like jewels in a cave. You can actually build your cave out and create like ruby mines and things like that. You can also send your workers, your dwarves, out on adventures, and you can actually level them up almost slightly RPG-ish, to a certain extent. And they can bring home, the more powerful dwarves can go out and they can bring home greater resources and different kinds of resources than the lower powered dwarves. And yes, with more players, even without more players, this game has 1 billion wooden bits in it, and I love it, okay? But the more players you add, the board gets bigger to some extent, Oh, great game. Amazing, amazing game, but it is a massive table hog, Caverna. Now, my number 3. This one is a bit more of a recent game that just came out. I won't call it Cult of the New, but I mean, it is very recent. It was a fairly successful Kickstarter. It's by Breaking Games. Was one of my most anticipated games last year, and I was very happy to get this game several months ago. Dwellings of Eldervale. Wow, this game's amazing. Wow, just check out our review. We fawned over it, but there were a few little things here and there that we nitpicked on, but the game overall is amazing. It is a bit of a hybrid game, almost feeling kind of like how Scythe feels in terms of it's like a hybrid. It's got a mixture of worker placement, engine building, hand management to some extent, and I just love it. I love this game. You're basically sending out your workers into a fantasy world, right? You're sending out your faction to go and fight monsters on the board. And oh my gosh, if you got the Legendary Edition, I think it's called, the sound bases that make all those amazing sounds, it is opulence to the core. I do not care. You would love it even without it, right? But the sound bases just rock my socks off, okay? You sit out there and you're like, I'm going to go fight that monster. And that monster, you kind of tap it on the board. It goes, roar, and you're like, oh, crap. If I take that down, I will be a legend. I'll be amazing. Songs will be sung about me. That's how you feel in this game. And you're basically trying to build up your power on these different elemental tracks. And the more you do that, the more you're able to combo as you make dwellings on the board. And the dwellings give you more power in battles and stuff. Interestingly enough, yeah, you're fighting a lot. But I thought the battle system, I wasn't going to like it as much as I did. But it was fairly intuitive, fairly simple. I also love the way that the cards are able to be upgraded. It's an interesting card upgrade system, especially being able to upgrade where you're able to change out resources that you can gather on different kinds of things when you gather the resources. And I love the fact that you can send different types of workers out on the fields, like a wizard, like a warrior, or a dragon, and they feel just different enough to make it worth your while. Breaking Games did an amazing job. Production quality, top notch. I had a little bit of a fiddly problem with some of the trays and stuff not fitting correctly. I fixed that. That's fine, but it is what it is. Now, my number 2 is a game that has a theme on it that I'm absolutely in love with. I love the theme of Jurassic Park. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Heck, I used to play, first off, I love the movies when they originally came out, but I used to play Jurassic Park video games as a kid, and there was one on the Game Boy Advance, I want to say, that was a Jurassic Park park builder. And I fell in love with that game. I would play it on long trips when parents were driving me places and things like that. And the fact is that this gives me a very similar vibe. Dinosaur Island. Wow, this game's a table hog. Oh my good Lord, this game hogs a table. Wow. But it does give me the feeling of building up my own dinosaur park. I have to be careful of the threat of dinosaurs escaping and eating visitors, especially. I would love it if they ate the hoodlums, but you know, it is what it is. But I do love that feeling of growing something out. And at the end of the game, win, lose, or draw, which typically never happens, I feel like, man, I built this, you know? And yeah, my Velociraptors ate a few of my customers, but people are going to keep coming in because they're excited to see that kind of stuff. But it's an amazing park. I mean, my goodness, has all these amazing like tilt-a-whirls and, you know, food stands and oh yeah, there's a T-Rex over here, and, you know, and we fed it a goat and, you know, threw the goat's leg on top of a vehicle, but, you know, that was just our leftovers. You know, I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, getting beyond all that, if you get the Totally Liquid expansion, a game that's already a massive table hog, it feels like becomes even more so. The amount of tokens, the metal coins, the amount of dinosaurs in the game. Good night. The plastic pieces and everything else that comes in this game, makes it an amazing deluxe feeling package. But it takes up almost every inch of this table space and then some. I mean, I have to pull tables up to me to make sure I have extra space, you know, for things that I need to use on the board. So Dinosaur Island, my number 2, definitely a massive table hog, but definitely worth your time. Now, my number 1 massive epic feeling table hoggy style game. I don't know if that sentence worked, but I don't care. It is considered by many to be the granddaddy of space opera games, and it definitely feels like the longest. Twilight Imperium 4. I'm more of a latecomer to this game than some. I played it for the first time in the past year or so, and played it several times actually. And man, one game took us at least 5 hours, you know what I mean? And that was after people knowing what they were doing. We had to play some training games for that one big old game, you know. But this game is the space opera I was looking for in terms of a longer, epic feeling space game. You know, civilization building. It's a 4X game, you know, and it's civilization building, and you are taking over planets, trying to gain more influence throughout the galaxy so that you can gain more political influence, so that you can build more ships to show that your political influence isn't without teeth, you know. And you might have a space battle here and there. Sometimes you'll have a massive space battle. Just an amazing game. And the conniving at the table between players, the alliances you might, you know, work out, the backstabbing that might happen, the political maneuvering. Oh, this game is awesome. And I can understand why it's considered one of the greatest games of all time. I don't know this for a fact right now, but the last time I checked it was like top 10 in the BGG rankings of all time. And so Twilight Imperium 4, what can I say? Sam Healy's right. Now, I can't get it to the table all the time, and generally speaking, I don't mind a long game as long as it can engross me thoroughly, which this does. This game is a massive table hog, though. Oh my gosh, it takes up this table, and that table. It depends on how many players, right? If you have 4 or more, you got all your pieces, or a ton of your pieces, off this table, because you're building the galaxy out, or the galaxy's built out and it's already taken up a great amount of space. Then you got your player area. Just so much room is taken up. I couldn't play more than 4 on this table, and that's with those extra tables. And so yeah, Twilight Imperium 4 had to be on this list. Awesome game. What about you? What are some of your big epic games, or just games basically that take up so much table space? I know there's a ton of games I'm probably missing. I know I have. But I'd like to hear more. I mean, what are some of your favorite table hoggish style games that you're willing to put up with eating up all of your table? Let me know down in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I mean, we enjoy having you on the channel. We'd love to have you now. Anyway, let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching the Dice Odyssey today. You have a blessed day, and game away. This video is brought to you by Fallen Dominion Studios. Check out their website at fallendominionstudios.com.